Welcome to Reality Deer Management. On today's episode, we're going to be showing you what our research has found that you could be missing while using one of these deer cameras. So stay tuned. You're watching Reality Deer Management. What we're going to show you today is basically my PowerPoint presentation that I give to co-op seminars and stuff like that. So that's what this show is going to be on, is going to show you a PowerPoint. So the title of the PowerPoint is What Are You Missing? And it's just going to go over what you're missing out there with using deer cameras. So ever think of what is going on through a deer's mind? All of us have pictures like this, deer looking straight into the camera. And they say a picture that can tell 1,000 words, and it's like this photo right here. What's this photo show us? Well, it tells us a little bit about the age structure of the buck and the buck behind it, but there's really not too much what's going on here that we can gain knowledge from, other than there's a buck that's made it through the first part of the gun season. So with all that, we always ask as deer managers, there's more to everything. And like, here's a simple photo, typical photo from a deer camera. And so we switched to video on our cameras, our covert cameras, and there's so much more that we can learn. Look at this. Instead of just a picture of a doe and a fawn, look at this. As she's running away. There's so much more that can be learned with video, and the benefits of video. With video, we can tell a lot better the age structure of our bucks. For example, this right here. We have probably a 3-year-old buck, and we can get the score of the animal a lot better because the deer is moving, showing us different angles of it. This is probably your typical 3-year-old in the state of Ohio, and he sees something coming here. Big Daddy. So here we got another buck that we can tell from the video 4 or 5 years of age, and we can score him as well. We can also tell the deer's behavior. How many of us are fortunate to have a picture like this that 2 bucks are sparring? But with video, we can learn from this. That it's not necessarily the size of the rack, obviously, that's the more dominant species here. Also, with the video, the ability to see everything. Here we have a photo, your typical deer camera photo. You got a 1.5-year-old buck, and obviously you can see in the background there is another deer, but we have no idea, how big this animal is or anything like that. But with video, we have a 1.5-year-old, and we can tell that this other deer is a 3.5-year-old buck, scored roughly about 130 something. So it allows us to see other things that's going on around us is the point of the video. But what it really showed us is this: how deer responds to cameras. And this was your typical doe response that we found. And I dedicated this whole year of 2011, a little bit of 2012, to notice that these deer were reacting negatively to the cameras. And this was your typical doe response. As you see, she was visual, checking it out. Now, most does didn't really necessarily bolt out of there, but they did this. This is what they typically did right here. Here's another picture of a doe, or video of a doe. Comes in, bam, sees the camera, does their typical thing that a doe does with this, gets nervous. Now, this is a negative response. Doesn't matter with age. We put that to the test too. Did it matter what age structure that is spooked a deer? Here we have a half-year-old doe fawn. Seen the camera, got nervous, bam. Totally a negative response to the camera. Now your buck's response was a lot different. Your doe's response was basically, you know, nervous, head bobbing, stomping, and then maybe moved around, bolted a little bit. But here's a typical buck response that we found out. Sees the camera, smells the camera, as you notice in the left part of the screen, bolted out of there. That was your typical response from a buck. Night and day difference. It was a gender difference. Here's another video of a buck coming in. And this deer here will show us too. Sees the camera. It was a visual thing. Smells the camera. Bam. Definite visual and then scent. So we tested our theory that, you know, we got thousands and thousands of video clips and we tested our theory on this. So, and everybody was saying, you know, hey, is it a sound? Is it something making noise in the deer camera? So what we did is we took the camera, turned it off, took the batteries out, took the camera card out, the whole 9 yards. And what we did also is, you know, we put the camera, the dead camera, put it on a tree. We took a live camera and put it up 10 feet above the camera looking down on it. And this was the doe's response to a camera that was completely dead. Notices the camera, scent. And now these cameras were also out for 2 weeks. First week's video, we totally scratched it, threw it away. Obviously the doe didn't bolt out of there, but she had a negative experience. So does it no flash? Does it really matter? No. No, it does not. Here's a buck's response to a dead camera. And this, like I said, all these video clips were out for 2 weeks at a time. Sprayed it down, everything. He sees the camera. Bam. Did a typical buck response compared to the doe. Okay, camera turned on. 80 yards away from the dead camera, we had a camera turned on live and also a camera 10 feet above it looking down at it to get the responses, a different angle of it. Here's your typical doe response to a live camera. As you see, she sees it, it's a visual thing, and right here, boom, the negative response. Now she doesn't bolt out, doesn't, you know, nothing too alarming, but she had a negative experience with the camera. Same deer, same video clip, it's just from up high. Right there. Not looking up, nothing, she's just looking right at the camera. And she moves on. Here we have the only footage, unfortunately, the only footage of a buck that was using this area. And you can tell deer comes in here, sees the camera, sees it, just backs out. Obviously, a negative experience. Tested another theory. What we found out too from the camera survey that we did, putting the cameras up high, is that we noticed a lot of deer didn't look up. Okay? So, now this is after like 400 video clips at this feeder here that we put the camera up high. We had 2 deer look up at it. That was it. So what we learned from this, and it didn't have to be too much higher. Now this camera here was up high, about 6 foot up. Now the camera, we had it before, was across the tree next to the feeder, and all the deer responded negatively to the camera, ran away and everything else. Same area, same bucks, what have you. Here's another big time difference with putting the camera up higher. Just that little bit made a big difference. Okay, bottom line is on all this is that less than half the deer responded negatively to the camera. Bucks had more negative response. It didn't matter if the camera was turned on or off, so the no flash thing, I don't know what to tell you on that one. Higher the camera, less than the negative response. Food plot areas had less negative response. New areas were more susceptible to negative response. And like I said, the big thing why is this less than half the deer responded is that the food plot areas brought the numbers up. I think that my theory on all this is that if the deer are used to having the camera there, it's not a big deal. That's why food plot areas, where the alarm factor wasn't up. I think out of 800 video clips, we had 1 deer respond negative out of a food plot. Scrapes, deer runs, bedding areas, the deer is new, it was a visual thing, and then it was a scent thing. It wasn't sound or anything like that. Here's some extra footage. Here's a buck walking, sees the camera, bam. Normally, you would, like I said, you would just get a photo of the deer, and that was it. You would have no idea if it wasn't on video. Total negative experience. Here's another picture of a deer here, the video clip. Now this deer, 2 video clips before, came in from the side, had no idea that the camera was there, finally realizes that the camera was there, and this is how he responded. Look at this. Now, how many of us put deer cameras on scrapes? Never saw that deer again. Here's another picture of a deer working a scrape. Comes in, does his thing, has no idea the camera's there, then bam, visual, gets nervous, and then bolts. Here's another picture of a deer coming out of a bedding area. Total visual thing is what we found out. Okay? And that's it. Like I said, all this was to show you is that what we saw. Well, hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. Today's episode was to show you, from switching the pictures to video, what you're missing, what you could be missing out there with your deer cameras. It doesn't matter what make or model, what type of camera. It's true with all cameras, and you should test it yourself, this theory of how it's more visual than anything. And with that being said, as my grandpa always used to say, no hurry, no worry, keep moving. And we'll see you next time on Reality Deer Management.
Reality Deer Management was brought to you by Kaufman Realty and Auctions, Base Camp Leasing, Solberg Scouting Cameras, Modern Habitat Solutions, Hillcrest Lumber, Holmes Laboratory, Bagheera Fishing Lures, Woodbury Outfitters, Merit Seed,